War remembers names carved into metals, etched onto stone. But some names never make it that far. In the smoke-choked ruins of a battlefield, one bullet found its mark, and history quietly shifted course. It wasn't fired by a general or a decorated hero, but by a girl no one paid attention to. She was the one everyone overlooked, the one passed over in every briefing, every roster. Yet when the moment came, all eyes turned toward the impossible shot she took. This is the story of the sniper everyone ignored, until her trigger finger changed the whole war. She arrived without fanfare, no medals, no recommendations, just a folded letter of acceptance and a rifle case nearly as tall as she was. Her uniform hung loosely off her shoulders, sleeves rolled up to keep from slipping past her hands. The others didn't even look up when she walked into the barracks. To them, she was just another face in a sea of recruits, until they realized she wasn't like the others. She didn't talk, she didn't complain, she didn't make friends. She just watched. Instructors barked orders, new soldiers stumbled. She didn't. When the whistle blew, she was already moving. When the order came to shoot, she was the last to fire, but the only one to hit center mass. Still, no praise followed. One of the sergeants raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Someone else claimed the shot. She didn't argue. She never did. Her name was Anya, no last name, or maybe no one remembered it. On the paperwork, she was just sniper trainee number 43. No one asked where she came from. No one cared that her boots were worn through at the soles, or that she carried a knife older than the war itself. She ate quickly, slept lightly, and rose before dawn to train alone. In the mess hall, soldiers joked about their hometowns, about lovers and victories that hadn't happened yet. Anya sat by herself, cleaning her rifle with quiet precision. When the others trained in pairs, she trained with shadows. The officers took note, but never her name. The quiet one, they called her, the ghost. It was no surprise when they passed her over for the first assignments. Others, louder and more confident, were picked. They laughed, saluted sloppily, and bragged on their way to the front. Some never came back, others did, quieter, changed. Meanwhile, Anya stayed behind, watching, waiting. One evening, an instructor finally called her out to the range. "Let's see if the ghost can hit something in daylight." Snickers followed. She didn't flinch. The target was nearly invisible. Half a kilometer away, wind cutting sideways, barely a silhouette between shattered trees. She lay down in the dirt. No hesitation, no theatrics. Just breath, stillness, silence. Then, a single shot. The target's head snapped back. A perfect hit. The laughter stopped. Someone whispered, "Lucky." But luck doesn't load a rifle in 3 seconds flat. Luck doesn't adjust for wind drift without a scope. Luck doesn't practice until fingers bleed. Still, no one clapped. No one saluted. The instructor just scribbled on a clipboard and walked away. Later that night, as snow began to fall outside the window, Anya sat by her bunk and disassembled her rifle for the 100th time. Her fingers moved with the patience of someone who had nothing to prove, only something to finish. They hadn't noticed her yet, but they would. Her first mission came quietly, like a whisper lost among the thunder of artillery and the screams of war. She was sent to the front lines with a small squad, barely a handful of soldiers who barely knew her name, much less her skill. They moved through shattered forests, broken earth scarred with shell craters, and the twisted remains of trees that once stood proud. The air was thick with smoke and the sharp tang of gunpowder. Every step was a gamble, every breath a countdown. Anya kept to the shadows, slipping between ruined buildings and behind fallen logs. Her rifle was steady in her hands, her eyes scanning for the slightest movement. Hours passed, the sun dipping lower behind a sky stained red with fire. The squad's commander, a grizzled man with a scar running down his cheek, barked orders, but she hardly heard him. Her focus was narrow, her mind empty but alert. Suddenly, a flash of movement. An enemy patrol crossing an open field. The squad froze, holding their breath. The commander looked toward her, then back to the patrol, weighing their chances. Anya didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle, sighted the closest figure, and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the stillness, sharp and precise. One enemy dropped silently, eyes wide with shock. The others scattered, confusion spreading like wildfire. The squad took advantage, moving forward under cover of the chaos. But when they regrouped, no one mentioned her shot. The commander claimed it had been a lucky shot from one of the riflemen, never giving her a glance. She said nothing. The silence was familiar, almost expected. In the following days, her kills increased, quiet, deadly, unrecorded. Soldiers whispered about the ghost that moved unseen, picking off enemies with ruthless efficiency, but they never connected the legend to the quiet girl no one noticed. Her squad mates looked at her with a mix of suspicion and awe. One soldier, a young man named Pavel, finally broke the silence. "How do you do it?" he asked one evening as they huddled around a small fire. "How do you stay so calm?" Anya only shrugged. "I don't think about it. I just see the target." "Must be luck," Pavel said, shaking his head. She didn't correct him. At night, she wrote letters that no one would read, pouring out thoughts she didn't share aloud. She wrote about home, about the fear that never left her chest, about the faces she saw every time she closed her eyes. But those letters stayed tucked away, folded into her jacket pocket, as unseen as the girl who carried them. Days turned into weeks. The war dragged on, relentless and unforgiving. Anya's reputation grew quietly among those who dared to notice. Her name was never called in briefings or celebrations, but on the front lines, soldiers began to trust the sniper who never failed them. Still, the higher-ups ignored her. To them, she was a footnote, a shadow. Her reports were filed away and forgotten. She was a weapon without a name. But every war has its turning points. Every silent shadow waits for the moment when the world will finally hear her shot. Her skill could no longer remain hidden. It was a quiet ripple at first, a whispered rumor carried through the ranks, passing from soldier to soldier like a secret blessing. But then, the shadows shifted. A man in a dark uniform, his eyes sharp and calculating, arrived at the base. He was an intelligence officer, sent to observe and evaluate. The moment he watched Anya move with the rifle, it became clear she was not just another recruit. She was summoned to a private tent, away from prying eyes. The officer didn't offer praise or smiles. Instead, he laid out a folder filled with maps, photographs, and orders marked top secret. "You have skills we need," he said simply. "The missions will be dangerous. You will be sent where others cannot go." Anya nodded, her expression unreadable. This was different. This was real. Her new assignments took her beyond the front lines and into the heart of enemy territory. Each mission grew riskier. She slipped through no man's land with the quiet patience of a predator, eyes sharp as a hawk's, breathing steady as the cold wind that cut across the plains. She observed enemy movements, intercepted communications, and eliminated key targets before they even knew she was there. During one assignment, she was tasked with taking out a sniper who had been harassing her unit for weeks. The two became locked in a deadly game of patience and skill, hiding behind ruined walls and in shattered trees. Days passed before she finally found her opportunity. With a single clean shot, the enemy sniper fell. The war zone grew quieter, just for a moment. Her reputation grew not through loud announcements, but through hushed stories among the soldiers. The mysterious sniper who appeared like a ghost, striking from nowhere and vanishing without a trace. The officers who had ignored her now whispered her name behind closed doors, cautious but curious. Despite the growing attention, Anya remained distant, her face set like stone. She never asked for recognition, never sought glory. She knew the cost. Each shot carried weight beyond the bullet. A life ended, a family shattered, a war prolonged. She worked alone, trusted by few, guided only by the belief that her actions, however unseen, mattered. And then came the orders that changed everything. Intelligence reports pointed to a high-ranking enemy officer, a man whose decisions had turned battles into slaughter. If she could stop him, even for a moment, the tide might turn. The mission was clear, the danger immense. But for the first time, Anya felt something stir inside her, a fierce determination, a voice inside that whispered, "This shot will be different." She packed her rifle carefully, checked her gear with practiced hands, and disappeared once more into the shadows. The war was no longer waiting for her to prove herself. It was waiting for her to end it. The night was colder than anything Anya had felt before. A biting wind swept through the ruined village where she had taken position, the skeletal remains of houses casting long shadows beneath a pale moon. She was hidden in the attic of a bombed-out building, the floorboards creaking softly beneath her as she adjusted her rifle. Her breath came in quiet clouds, and her heart, steady and controlled, hid the pounding beneath. She had been tracking enemy movements for days, gathering intelligence for what would be the most dangerous mission yet. But danger had a way of finding her, no matter how carefully she moved. It started with a whisper, footsteps in the rubble below, voices low but urgent. An ambush. The enemy had known she was there. Someone had betrayed her. Bullets shattered the silence, splintering wood and kicking up dust. She fired back once, twice, but the odds were against her. The door to the attic burst open, and figures spilled inside. She fired again, narrowly missing, then ducked behind a broken wall. A sharp pain flared in her side. She staggered, a hot rush spreading across her ribs. But she didn't fall. Clutching her wound, she crawled toward a broken window and slipped into the night. Every step was agony. Blood soaked her shirt, but adrenaline kept her moving. Behind her, enemy shouts grew louder, but she vanished into the dark streets, a ghost once more. For hours she hid in cellars and alleyways, avoiding patrols, driven by one thought: survive. When dawn finally broke, a friendly squad found her collapsed behind a wall. They carried her to safety, whispers spreading about the sniper who had slipped through the enemy's grasp. Her injury slowed her, but it did not break her. In the quiet of the field hospital, as medics worked, word of her escape spread quietly among the soldiers. She was no longer just the quiet girl with the rifle. She had become something more, an enigma, a symbol of resilience. Soldiers spoke of her in low tones, sharing stories of the woman who survived when all odds said she wouldn't. Her legend grew, not from trophies or medals, but from the sheer impossibility of her survival. The enemy called her the shadow that can't be caught. Even among her comrades, respect deepened. Pavel, the young soldier who had once asked how she stayed calm, now looked at her with something close to awe. "You're like a ghost," he said quietly during a rare moment together. Anya simply nodded, eyes distant. The war around them raged on, but something had shifted. She was no longer invisible. The commanders who had once ignored her began to reconsider, their voices less dismissive when her name came up. But Anya did not seek their approval. She had survived an impossible night, and that was enough. She knew the war was far from over. The shot she would take next was waiting, a shot that might change everything. But first, she had to heal, gather strength, and prepare to face whatever waited in the darkness ahead. The air was heavy with tension as the soldiers prepared for what would become the largest battle of the campaign. Rumors spread quickly. An enemy offensive was imminent, a surge that could break the lines and send shockwaves through the entire front. Commanders gathered, maps spread out like battle scars on worn tables, their faces grim with the weight of impossible decisions. Anya watched from a distance, her body still healing but her mind sharper than ever. The wound in her side had left a scar, but it was the impossible orders now being whispered that captured her attention. Intelligence had pinpointed a crucial target, a high-ranking general whose leadership had turned the enemy's forces into a ruthless machine, crushing resistance and crushing lives. Stopping him meant more than just one life lost. It meant tipping the scales of war. The mission was clear, but the path was fraught with danger. The general was heavily guarded, moving between command posts like a shadow protected by layers of soldiers. No one else had been able to get close, and most believed it was impossible. But Anya had never been interested in what others believed. She studied the maps, memorizing every route, every patrol pattern, every blind spot. She trained harder, pushing her body despite the pain that still throbbed in her ribs. Her rifle was tuned to perfection, her bullets carefully selected for maximum impact and silence. The night before the assault, she stood alone on a ridge overlooking the enemy camp. The moon was a pale witness, the stars distant and cold. She breathed deeply, steadying herself against the weight of what was to come. The next day, as the battle erupted around her, Anya moved like a shadow slipping through chaos. Explosions shook the earth, and gunfire cracked like thunder. Soldiers charged forward, screaming, dying. Amid the storm of destruction, she crept toward her target. Hours passed in slow, torturous moments. Every step could be her last. Every breath could betray her position. And then she found her place, a narrow window in the general's command post. The enemy was distracted, the general standing near a map table, surrounded by officers barking orders. Anya settled into position, her rifle steady against her shoulder, her eye lining up the impossible shot. She waited. The general turned, his face clear in the scope, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The distant roar of battle faded. Time slowed to a heartbeat. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The bullet left the barrel with a whisper, a flash of metal and fate. The general collapsed, chaos erupting instantly as his guards scrambled. The enemy faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Orders were lost, soldiers hesitated, and the tide of battle began to shift. From the shadows, Anya watched the war she had helped change. Her shot had not only ended a life, it had struck a blow to the enemy's spirit, giving her side a fighting chance. For the first time, her name was spoken in command tense, whispered with a mix of disbelief and awe. The sniper everyone ignored had fired the shot that changed the whole war. The moment her bullet found its mark, the world seemed to hold its breath. The general's body crumpled over the map table, eyes wide with shock. The officers around him froze, confusion rippling through the room like a sudden storm. Shouts erupted, orders tangled and lost in panic. The chain of command shattered in an instant. Outside, the enemy soldiers faltered. The confidence that had driven them for months cracked beneath the weight of uncertainty. Without their leader's steady hand, hesitation spread through their ranks like wildfire. Tanks stalled, infantry hesitated, and for the first time in weeks, the momentum of the war shifted. Anya didn't wait to watch the full impact. She vanished into the chaos, slipping away like the ghost she had always been. Her heart pounded not just from the exertion, but from the knowledge that everything had changed because of that one shot. Back at the command center, whispers of her name began to circulate. The sniper, they called her. The ghost. The woman who had been ignored, dismissed, and overlooked. The woman who, with a single bullet, had altered the course of history. Soldiers who had once doubted her now spoke her name with reverence. Commanders who had never acknowledged her presence now sought reports, briefings, anything that could shed light on the mysterious sniper. But Anya remained distant, her face still hidden in shadows. Recognition was not what she sought. She understood better than anyone the cost of her actions. That bullet had ended a life, but it had also saved thousands. It was a burden she carried silently. In the days that followed, the enemy retreated, their ranks fractured and morale broken. The front lines shifted. Battles once lost were now won. And through it all, the sniper remained a phantom presence, unseen, unheard, but always there. Her shot had done more than kill a man. It had sparked a change, a turning point in a war that had seemed endless. The quiet girl no one noticed had become the legend everyone spoke of. History would remember her not for the medals she never wore, but for the moment when one shot changed everything. Stories began to spread, carried on whispered conversations among soldiers and commanders alike. Tales of the sniper who moved like a shadow, unseen and unstoppable. They spoke of her patience, her silence, and the deadly precision that never missed its mark. Some said she was a ghost, a myth born from desperation and hope. Others swore they had seen her, fleeting glimpses between trees or perched high in ruined buildings, watching with eyes sharper than any eagle's. In the quiet moments between battles, veterans shared their memories. One recalled how, during a bitter cold dawn, her shot saved their squad from an ambush no one else saw coming. Another remembered the calm reassurance that spread through the troops when they heard rumors of the ghost sniper protecting their flanks. Even the enemy, terrified and baffled, spoke of her with a grudging respect, calling her the invisible death. As the war ground on, historians and journalists began piecing together fragments of her story. A recovered diary, its pages worn and stained, revealed thoughts and fears hidden beneath the steel resolve. Letters, smuggled from the front and kept secret, told of a young woman who fought not for glory but for survival, and for a future that seemed just beyond the horizon. In rare moments of calm, Anya's face appeared in interviews or photographs circulated quietly among trusted allies. Her eyes held a quiet strength, a mix of sorrow and determination. But she never sought the spotlight. The legend grew not because she claimed it, but because her actions demanded it. The sniper who had once been ignored became a symbol of resilience, of courage, and of the countless unsung heroes whose names were lost to history's dust. She was a reminder that sometimes the smallest voice can carry the greatest impact, and that in the darkest times, even a single shot can echo across the world. NHER's story was no longer just a whisper in the rubble. It had become a beacon, shining through the fog of war, inspiring those who would carry the fight long after the guns fell silent. Years after the war ended, Anya's presence faded from the front lines, but never from the hearts of those who knew her story. The world had changed, borders redrawn and wounds slowly healing, yet her legacy endured quietly beneath the surface. Official records mentioned her name only in passing, if at all, but those who had witnessed her courage carried her memory like a sacred flame. Veterans who once fought beside her gathered in small, solemn reunions. They shared stories of the sniper who never sought recognition, the girl who moved like a shadow and struck with deadly precision. Their voices carried the weight of gratitude and sorrow, knowing that without her, many might never have seen peace. In classrooms and museums, young soldiers learned about the invisible heroes of war, those who fought not for medals or parades, but for the simple hope of survival and the dream of a better future. Anya's story was told quietly at first, tucked into history books and whispered in documentaries, a testament to the power of determination and skill over fame. She lived a life away from the spotlight, choosing silence over celebration. Some said she settled in a small village, tending to a garden far from the echoes of gunfire and war. Others believed she traveled, always moving, a restless spirit who carried the weight of countless lives on her shoulders. But wherever she was, the world knew that the sniper everyone had ignored was the one who changed everything. Her shot had echoed beyond the battlefield, shifting the tides of history in ways no one could have predicted. And in the end, that was enough. Decades passed, and the world moved on from the brutal conflict that had shaped so many lives. Cities rebuilt, borders settled, and new generations grew up unaware of the sacrifices made long before their time. Yet, beneath the surface of peace, the echoes of that war still whispered, carried in the memories of those who survived, and in the stories passed down. Anya's name, once dismissed or forgotten, began to resurface in unexpected places. A war memorial plaque here, a forgotten photograph there, pieces of her story stitched together like a fragile tapestry. Scholars and historians uncovered her letters and journals, revealing a voice that had remained silent for too long. An honest, raw account of fear, hope, and unwavering resolve. Her legend grew beyond the battlefield. She became a symbol of what it meant to fight quietly, without fanfare or fame, yet with a courage that changed the course of history. In schools, her story was taught alongside those of generals and politicians, reminding young minds that heroism often wears no uniform, no medals, no accolades. Communities honored her in memorials and ceremonies. The sniper who had once been ignored finally recognized for the life she saved, the war she helped end. Her rifle, once a tool of death, became a symbol of peace, a reminder that even in the darkest times, one person's actions can alter the fate of millions. And though Anya herself remained distant, her legacy breathed life into a world yearning for hope. Her story inspired countless others to believe that no voice is too small, no act too quiet to matter. The sniper everyone ignored was no longer invisible. She had become a beacon, a testament to the power of precision, patience, and silent strength. Her shot didn't just change a battle, it changed the entire war, and in doing so, changed history itself. Anya's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound impacts come from those we least expect. She was the sniper everyone ignored, overlooked by commanders, underestimated by enemies, and nearly invisible to the very soldiers she protected. Yet with patience, skill, and unwavering determination, she changed the course of an entire war with a single shot. Her journey wasn't one of glory or recognition. It was one of silent sacrifice, resilience, and quiet strength. She fought not for fame, but because she believed that every life saved, every enemy stopped, brought her world one step closer to peace. In the end, her legacy transcended the battlefield. It became a symbol of hope for generations who learned that courage isn't always loud or celebrated. It can be hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to make history. The sniper who was once ignored will never be forgotten. Her story reminds us all that even the quietest voices can carry the greatest power, and that sometimes one shot can change everything. They say history remembers its heroes, the ones with medals, parades, and names carved in stone. But history lies, because somewhere, between the thunder of artillery and the silence that follows, there was a single shot. No fanfare, no witnesses. Just a girl no one noticed until her bullet changed the war.